Now you're listening to Fantastic Formosa with Joh Abrams in Taipei. Whiskey Mike, Brian is back. Earlier we were talking about his early life in Montana. His father not serving, but going to Vietnam, working for Bell Helicopter, and working with the military there on the UH-1H Huey helicopter. Taiwan had a lot of those up to recently. They got the UH-64s, right? Or 60s.
UH-60s,
yeah. UH-60s, Blackhawks. And they got some Boeing AH-64 Apaches, right? Attack helicopters.
Yeah.
And so we're interested in, this very interesting legacy issue. In the previous episode, I mentioned a book that everyone should try to read called Black Hawk Down. And I also mentioned the book Tet Offensive. And those were both written by Bowden, B-O-W-E-N, Mark Bowden. And he's written those two good books. And Black Hawk Down was later made into a movie. And we're fortunate tonight because, Brian flew Apache Attack Helicopters in Afghanistan and Iraq, right?
That's true.
Wow. Okay. And you saw some heavy-duty combat. And, we have a lot of Apaches here in Taiwan. And we're wondering, what you might suggest in terms of perspectives on combat and your experiences on how to survive combat. And how did you even learn how to fly a helicopter? Did your father tell you to, hey, I flew helicopters, now it's your turn, How did you get interested in helicopters? Was it your father or?
Yeah, I joined the military when I was 17, and it was the National Guard of Arizona. It was like a reserve type deal. And the first thing they trained me on was artillery. I was a M109, artillery crew member.
They have those here.
Yeah, for sure. So I did that for a couple of years, and then Arizona also has Apache helicopters. And within the Reserve National Guard structure, you can transfer from unit to unit as long as, within the state. So I actually was, poached or recruited from one unit to the other.
What they're saying is that, the other guy was too stupid. We need somebody smarter.
Yeah. So that's how I got, into aviation within the military, and they brought me on as a Apache mechanic.
Wow, so, that's a good way to learn how to fly too, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, to know your machine is to you can know when it reaches its limits.
Yeah, you're in combat. You hear a strange noise. You go, oh no, that's the so and so.
Right. Yeah,
we have to turn around. Yeah, and then go. The other co-pilot or pilot says, no, we can keep fighting. You go, no, we have to go home.
Yeah, some emergencies are more important than others.
Sure. So how long did it take you to learn how to be a mechanic on Apache? What was this? You went to school.
Yeah,
right?
It's a 6-month school.
Okay.
Yeah, right. So you're there for 6 months on, basic mechanic work, general mechanic, airframe and power plant. So you get a introduction into turbine engines, hydraulics, fuel systems, anything to do with aviation maintenance. It's a lot different than working on your farm tractor.
Yes, I'm sorry. That's all I got.
You got to track your nuts and bolts and what order you took them off, and
I took engines apart. Oh, I don't know, cars, everything. You name it, I can take an engine apart. But man, a helicopter, no. Sorry, no.
Yeah, they're a little bit more cautious.
You got pressure tolerances on bolts and things, and
torque wrenches.
That would terrify me.
Get every step of the process supervised and checked off along the way.
Yeah. One thing the pilot wants to do is be very nice to the mechanic, right?
Right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So 6 months, and now you're a mechanic.
Yeah, so I got back. I enjoyed that. So that's when I decided to go on active duty Army. So I went full-time, to the regular Army, and they sent me off to Texas. And then I spent a year there, and then I started talking to my dad about the Army aviation, and he was excited about it. He liked to talk about it still, because after his time with Bell Helicopters in Vietnam, he came back to Montana, and that's when he started his logging company. But he still had that desire, or that to talk about aviation stuff.
Sure, yeah. He couldn't buy an old Huey left over from the war and put it together in his backyard.
I think he thought about it.
Yeah, a lot of guys did that. Strangely enough, they started. They buy 3 or 4 pieces of junk, and then they throw them together as one. We did that with cars all the time. We'd buy 3 used cars and fix the damn thing, So wow. So now you're going to be deployed, right?
Well, first thing, of course, my dad told me about this program called the Warrant Officer Program.
Right.
That's where you could apply.
It's like the NCO program, right?
Well,
or is it different?
It's different. It's kind of in between NCO and officer.
Right.
So
wow.
It's
more important.
Yeah, you're legally, by the regulations, you're an officer, just like a regular officer. But you're basically a technical officer. In the Air Force, they call them technical officers.
Right.
So, like, you could be a pilot in the Air Force, and you can go, you can be a technical officer where you don't get, command of soldiers or airmen, or you could be, a command officer, right? And then they take you out of the cockpit and they send you all these command schools, and then you get all these airmen underneath you. So there's a progression even within the Air Force where you either choose command or stay technical. So technical will keep you in the cockpit flying, and command will take you out of the cockpit, but you have more opportunities for advanced promotion and stuff.
More money.
Yeah. If you stay technical officer in the Air Force, you're pretty much guaranteed you're going to retire as a lieutenant colonel.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is that what you did, or?
So in the Army, of course, we have warrant officers, and then we have officers, and all the officers, the traditional officers, are command officers. So, and then warrant officers are the technical officers. So, of course, I became a warrant officer, and so I stayed technical throughout my whole career, flying and advising command on helicopter operations up to, the highest levels, strategic command and stuff.
Jeez. So what was the transition like from going to, you got out of school, you went active duty, and then and then you went where? What was your first deployment was?
Yeah, so after
Texas, and then where overseas?
Yeah, so Texas was still, I was still a mechanic.
Oh, you're still a mechanic there.
Yeah.
All right.
And then I volunteered to get out of Texas, so I went to South Korea, as a mechanic.
Active duty, or?
Active duty, yeah.
Right. How long were you in Korea?
For 1 year.
All right.
And that's when I put in my warrant officer application while I was there in Korea.
Pilot training.
Yeah. So the funny story about that was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the head, general of all the military in America. He came to my unit to watch us do aerial gunnery, and the sergeant major liked me, so he picked me to go have lunch with him, with 3 other guys. So we're sharing the MREs with the general, right?
Wow. All right.
And there, of course, so with that highest ranking general there, you have all the other generals that are underneath him there too. So you had the PACOM commander there.
Pacific Command?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh my
And
God. Who was it that year?
it was General Tillelly.
I didn't know him.
Yeah.
But I met a lot of them.
Yeah, and then of course, we had the commander in charge of Korean forces, and then the South Korean actual commanding general was also there. So, anyways, they gave me some swag, as we call it, some unit coins and hats and stuff with all our pictures of Apaches. So I had to present this or give it to General Tillelly, the PACOM commander. And so while we're all talking at the lunch table, Tillelly, he gets up to leave, and he's walking behind me. So I chase him out of the tent, and I say, "Hey, sir, I'm supposed to, I'm an E4 at the time, specialist." Mm-hmm. And I was like, "Hey, sir, I'm supposed to give you this hat and coin." And so now we're outside with all the news crew and stuff. And so he's like, "Oh, okay, all right." So we do the whole, I present him with the hat, and I present him with the coin. And so he shakes my hand, and he pulls me in close, and he goes, "Anything I can do for you, let me know." And I said, "Okay, sir, I want to go to flight school." And he said, "Are you serious?" And I said, "Yes, sir, I've already started my application." And he says, "Okay, you're going." And I said, "Well, I still have to apply, sir. There's a process."
Right.
And he just laughed, and then he, told all the reporters that I'm going to flight school.
And that's like announcements.
Yeah. So he announced it, and I I was like, I don't know, this old guy, he doesn't really understand the process.
No, he doesn't. He does. He does. Yes.
Yeah. So I put my packet in, and I got picked up first go, and of course that was great. So then I left Korea, and I went to warrant officer candidate school. And after a few months, graduated, and then that's when they give you like all your personal stuff back after graduation, and within that stuff is your application packet. And within my application packet, there was a letter from the 4-star general to the 2-star general that was responsible for recruiting command. Telling him to select me.
Oh my God. Now that letter was a copy of the letter sent to
No, that
him,
was the actual letter.
You had to give it to the general.
No. So the 4-star general sent it directly to the 2-star general. And then it just got, this is all before computers. So
yeah.
Everything was done paper and whatever. So I'm sure it wouldn't happen that way now, but I got that back, and I was like, oh well, how convenient. I guess that was good luck on my part, I guess. But
when they sit around like that, a lot of times these generals and admirals will come around, and it's sort of like a talent spotting thing. They're looking for quality and honesty, particularly honesty, I think, amongst people. But wow. So where was the school to learn how to fly Apache?
So this school at the time called Fort Rucker, Alabama. So southeastern Alabama.
So you got to learn the southern drawl.
Yeah. I found out what this thing called grits is.
Grits.
I had never tried it before.
They speak a lot different down there.
Yeah. Yeah. Alabama was definitely a learning experience for sure.
Yes. So you go to school there, and how long before you actually get inside an Apache and try to get off the ground?
So basic flight school, if I remember right, it was about a year long.
Wow.
So they you do the couple months of officer training, and then they put you into basic helicopter flight training, which is a contracted civilian company that teaches you how to fly.
Is this a simulation or
both? You have simulations, and majority is all live aircraft. The Bell EP.22 which Jet Ranger.
Right, I know that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So
very popular commercial one.
Yeah, it's very reliable.
Yeah.
It's a hardworking aircraft. So all the basic flight training was completed in that airframe. They called it, the military version was called the Training Helicopter 67, TH-67. But
they have the TH-67 here, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so it's a good low-cost trainer
right.
with turbine time, engine, and everything. So if it's a good aircraft to learn in. But so after completing that basic, then you go into instrument flight training. So how to fly in clouds and without visual references and stuff. So using your radios for directional course and stuff, and so you complete, which is like a lot of academic knowledge. So once you know how to fly the helicopter, pointing it in the right direction is pretty easily, but knowing all the rules of airspace and the numbers and calculations of while you're flying, and that's a lot of studying. So the guys that I saw fail out of flight school were the guys that decided not to study and go down to the beach and party in Florida on the weekend.
So they didn't last long.
Yeah.
They just gave up, or they
I don't know, they just had different priorities, right? So
they decided this wasn't what I wanted.
Yeah.
Is this before the war started?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, this is definitely before the war started. So
all right.
Yeah, the completion rate for flight school is pretty high. I mean, the attrition rate is we do have a few fail out, but it's not the majority or anything. It's definitely very low numbers. If you give 110%, we'll make you successful.
But you scored to get into that. There's a test, obviously, of some
Yeah,
sort,
of course.
right?
There's tests all along the way, and even during flight training, for your basic and instrument flight school, there's academic, records being kept along the way. So, what you scored, it's just like a college university. They keep, your percentage ratings on all your tests and stuff. So, at the end of it, you'll reach your advanced airframe selection board. The Army will come out with the number of pilots they need for Blackhawks, Chinooks, Apaches, Kiowa Warriors. So they'll bring your whole class in, and they'll say, okay, these are all the airframes that we need. They'll start with the highest academic achiever in the class, and they'll say, okay, which one of those do you want?
Nice.
And,
I like that.
Yeah, so then the next guy, and it just goes on down on the line. So, of course, I wasn't the best, but I wasn't the worst. So, anyways, by the time they got to my name, I still had I could choose from whichever airframe I wanted. And in the Apache helicopter, there was one left. I was able to select that, which was beneficial to me for, of course, because I had just come out of working on them.
Yeah. I would have just given you one.
Yeah.
With mechanical experience working on them, I would have just assumed that you'd be a perfect fit.
Yeah. One of the interesting things, though, because the community was, relatively half the size of the Black Hawk community. So the airframes-wise, there's half as many Apaches as there are Blackhawks. So that means half the pilots, half personnel, and everything, right? So the community is smaller. So me getting qualified as a pilot in the Apache, then going back out into the community, everybody knew me as the crew chief or the mechanic, and I show up as the new pilot, and it's
wow.
It's like,
did it give him hope?
Yeah, in some aspects, yes, but my friends.
And you're outranked them now.
Yeah, so I'm an officer now, and they're enlisted. So
no drinking, no.
My commander had to have a talk with me about that.
Yeah, you're too friendly.
Yeah, you can't hang out with them anymore.
Oh, you know what? We used to we're buddies. I don't know what to do. Yeah. I mean, I've heard these stories before. So, but did any of them take up the same sort of he got in. Let's do it. Let's try it.
Yeah, I
Let's
had a
get it.
couple other mechanic friends of mine that also became pilots.
right.
And flew. Yeah, it's good.
That seems like a natural transition, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I'd rather have somebody who knew about the engines, that was flying the damn thing.
Yeah. It's funny though, like your pre-flight inspection. The pilot, gets issued the logbook for the aircraft, and you go out and you do the pre-flight inspection, and you're checking for anything that's wrong with it. My default was to go out and do a maintenance inspection. Which is more in depth, right?
Yeah,
so my pre-flight inspections will be a little bit more detailed, so that maybe the maintenance didn't appreciate me as much.
Maybe it saved you during the war.
I think so. I've definitely found items that were broken that could have cost a life.
My God, yeah. I would. The idea that you're going to go into combat, you can go around and look at the engine and say, hey, this is wrong.
Yeah, hey, this engine needs oil. You know that?
Yeah. Transmission's gone. Where's the transmission? That seems to be a smart move. So you finished school, and how long before you deployed? Where is it? Europe?
So 2000 complete with flight school training, Apache pilot training, and they sent me off to Germany. And so I was stationed in Frankfurt, Germany area, Hanau, and as an Apache pilot, AH-64A as the
first
OG original Apache. So a lot of steam gauges and stuff.
Steam gauges.
Yeah.
We don't hear that anymore.
Yeah.
Except for old aircraft.
Yeah.
Gosh, yeah. I remember the people complaining about those. They would actually take their finger and knock on them to make sure they're working.
Yeah.
Not stuck.
Yeah. I remember when I got to Germany, it was interesting. I can't imagine the minimum weather requirements were crazy dangerous. When it was like minimum weather to take off was 300-foot ceiling and 800 meters visibility.
What?
Yeah, and we would go out and train in that weather condition.
My God, in the mountains in Germany too. Right?
Yeah. So to think back about it today, like the Army in Europe, they definitely have higher weather minimums now. But we definitely put ourselves at increased risk. But those were the weather minimums established during the 80s.
For the Soviet conflict.
So they wanted the pilots to learn how to fly in, dangerous weather conditions.
Right, because you were supposed to be low to the ground and using tree cover.
Right.
Ironically, and you're not a tank.
Right. Yeah.
And you would raise up with your, what is that called on top? The ball, the optical sensor?
Well, we hadn't even got there yet because the A model didn't have that radar dome on the top.
It was just the OH, what was it? The Kiowa?
No, well, the Kiowa Warrior had a sight system
on
the top of the rotor, so you could optically see, right?
Right, but that was a completely different system from the Apache, right? I think.
Well, no. If you look at the Kiowa Warrior and the A model Apache, basically the sight system, it's an optical thermal, system. And for the A model Apache, it's mounted on the nose of the helicopter, and the Kiowa Warrior was mounted on the above the rotor head system.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So they did the similar things, but
so you didn't have that.
We didn't have the radar detection that the longbow brought in.
So how did you find your Soviet tanks if they invaded?
Thermal imagery from the sight system that's on the nose of the helicopter.
That means you had to raise above the tree level.
Yeah.
Okay. That's actually more comfortable because you have to fire your missiles.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Yeah, you can't.
You can't fly through the woods.
Right.
I had forgotten that. I had grown up with this problem because we were always studying the European. There was a famous pass in Europe that we consider.
Oh, the Fulda Gap.
We consider that would be someday the greatest tank battle in human history.
Yeah.
It never happened because the Soviet Union fell apart.
Yeah.
But everyone was talking about that when I was a kid. Oh yeah, that'll be like, the war like no other,
Yeah.
And I go, okay. And then you look at the maps and everything, and I think, oh my God. So here you are in Germany, and you're doing these things, and you get the weekends off.
Of course, yeah. Most weekends.
And these German beer gardens, I'm sure, are quite interesting.
Yeah. In fact, you brought up Fulda. In the Fulda Gap, Fulda is the name of a German village. So the valley.
What's the real estate there like?
Yeah. So the valley outside Fulda, there's some hills, mountains, and stuff around there. So at the top of one of the mountains is an old monastery, hundreds of years old, called Kreuzberg. And it's they have still monks there that are making beer, and they it's like a tourist location now, so you can go and get this like really authentic, monk-made monastery beer at the top of this mountain right next to Fulda.
Is it a dark beer or is it a?
They do both. They do a Dunkel, which is dark,
Mm-hmm.
and then they do, like, most famous is like Hefeweizen.
Oh.
Yeah, and so their Weizen is really
I had
good.
friends that went to Germany and never could, and they came back from the military and back to the U.S. I could never drink a regular American beer again.
Yeah, there's definitely a difference.
They had to have some exotic, thing, and I go, I can't afford that. What are you talking about? Give me a Budweiser.
In fact, if you remember Playboy magazine.
Yeah, of course, when I was a kid.
Yeah, they of course, people say they would buy those magazines to read the articles.
Right.
One of the articles that they had in the magazine was about the Kreuzberg Monastery. They said they credited it as being the best beer in the world.
I believe it. So
Yeah.
you bought this beer. You didn't go to the monastery to have drinks, did you?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
They have well, I do have a funny story about that. One of our officers, he was selected for promotion, so he rented a bus, and we shuttled all of the pilots in our unit in the bus up to the Kreuzberg Monastery establishment, and they have tables and stuff too, so you can drink beer and eat dinner and stuff up there. Kind of a tourist thing, right?
Right.
So coincidentally, we ran into a group of German women that were there for a what do you call that before they get married?
Bachelorette party.
Bachelorette party. Yeah. So all these. So these girls were out for a bachelorette party, and anyways, long story short, bunch of guys, a bunch of girls. We have the girls. They're dancing on our table, doing the German dancing songs and yelling and screaming, and it was a good time to be had all around. Everybody's having a good time, but the monks came down.
They weren't happy,
and they were not happy. They said they kicked us all out. They said this is not a disco. And they told us all to leave. So no fighting, no nothing. It was just good times all around. But the monks were not happy.
Yeah, so you took it all outside and continued, or did you?
Yeah, we just decided to get on the bus and go home.
All right, before anything really bad happened. You weren't there during the early years of the 80s when we still had the German terrorist organizations running around blowing up things.
No.
Because I remember a friend of mine he wasn't killed, but he was injured during a bombing, car bomb. I can't remember the German terrorist organization now. It was the do you remember this group?
No.
They had stolen his ID at a disco a couple nights before and killed him. Left his body in the woods and Bonder Meinhof gang or something like that. And then they loaded this car full of, and drove it right on base with his his card, and it went off. And he was behind a file cabinet when it went off. And
the late 80s, you started to see a rise of the Middle Eastern terrorist attacks.
There were those too.
In Europe, Lockerbie bombing and stuff. The air, a
lot of those
bombing airplanes and stuff like that. And in fact, it sounds incredibly ridiculous today, but there was one terrorist event that happened in Germany on the Autobahn, the freeway system.
All right.
Where it's straight out of a movie film or something, where the terrorists were tracking one of the army brigade commanders and his.
Is this Germany or?
It's in Germany, okay. West Germany.
All right.
And they were tracking him in his his government vehicle. He was
a driver.
And they shot an RPG at his car.
Oh my God!
And on the freeway, and that actually happened. It did not, kill the brigade commander, but it was legit. It seriously happened.
But when you fire an RPG in a car, I guess you were in a car or a van or something.
Yeah, they just like out of a TV show. They stood. It was like a BMW with the moonroof. They literally stood up in the moonroof to shoot out the top of the car on the freeway.
Well, that would. Yeah, I was going to ask you about the exhaust from the RPG that came out the back tube. That would pretty much set everybody in the car on fire.
Yeah. Absolutely insane. You can't.
You see these accidents on YouTube if you want to look them up.
Yeah.
But then, of course, you're in Germany, and something happens in New York and Washington that's quite horrible, and now you suddenly,
2001, of course, World Trade Center attacked, and we were preparing. Of course, the whole military, we were getting ready to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the initial units, like Fort Bragg out of North Carolina, deployed to Afghanistan.
Immediately.
The 82nd. Yeah. So, your Tier 1 units deployed to Afghanistan right away. And I was in a, heavy armor division in Germany. So, we're not light fighting. It takes a lot of time and effort to plan our movements. So by 2003 is when they loaded us up and headed down to Iraq.
When they finally stabilized got an air base that can handle your.
Well, no. We deployed to Kuwait.
Oh, and by port?
Yeah, by port.
Uh-huh.
So we mobilized in Kuwait through the ports and the airports in Kuwait, and then we moved into Iraq from Kuwait.
That was an iffy war. I wasn't sure if that was such a great idea.
Everything. Hindsight's 20/20.
Yeah, 20/20 is an expression meaning that hindsight. When you look back, you think, "Oh, that was a bad idea." It was never clear why we were going, but the public wasn't really arguing with the White House. There wasn't and the media, the Western media, of course, was supporting it as well. So, it was a strange one. A lot of people kept asking questions like they had nothing to do with 9/11, September, and why have a two-front war, and why? A lot of whys.
Colin Powell, at the time, he brought up some good talking points to the president, George Bush, okay, you want to go into Iraq, what's your objective? What's your end goal?
Yeah.
If you don't have a obtainable objective, then you're going to get bogged down there.
Sure.
And, if you can't go there, reach your objective and leave, then you shouldn't go.
Right.
And he told, obviously that was lessons learned that he learned in Vietnam.
Right. That was called the Cole Doctrine, right? Or something like that? Or And he didn't apply it to the...
No.
When it came to his turn to make a decision.
Yeah. But Colin Powell, great general.
Yeah,
And,
no question.
If anybody could read his book, My American Journey.
Right.
Really good, take from a young Army officer's, point of view.
He was born in Jamaica or Puerto Rico or something like that, right?
I think he was born in America, but his family was from the islands down there.
Right, okay. All right.
Yeah. His mom and dad were definitely from there, but he was American.
Of course. Yeah. He had such an interesting background.
Yeah, definitely.
A lot of seasoning, that makes him interesting.
Yeah, in fact, he was in 2 helicopter crashes.
In Vietnam? Or?
One in Vietnam. This is all in the book. And then the second one was with his wife.
That must have impressed her.
When he was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
What?
They were doing that Haiti operation.
Right.
And so he was going down to tour the troops, and there was a aircraft carrier down there off the coast of Haiti, and his family heritage down there in the islands, they had invited him because he's like a VIP. They wanted him to come visit his family and ancestral area with was whatever his family that still lives there. And so they took him down there. I don't know if it was DR or Dominican Republic, or I can't remember exactly what the name of the island was. But anyhow, they took him. He went down there, and then the U.S. military was going to pick him up and take him out to the aircraft carrier. But the country said, "Hey, we would be very proud if you flew on one of our Hueys out to the aircraft carrier." No. And so he agreed, and he said, okay. And so, of course, single engine Huey, and
it's probably one of the ones that Vietnam scrap.
He's got his wife on board. He's an old timer by this. And
honey, you'll see what it was like for me.
And they get up
and
there.
Literally,
they get up, they take off, and they start flying, and sure as heck. He had engine failure, and
all right.
The good thing about the UH-1, of course, it's a semi-rigid underslung rotor system, which means the rotor blades retain their inertia, so they're really good autorotational characteristics.
Okay.
So, complete engine failure, helicopter auto rotates and lands on the beach.
Wow.
Luckily, they were, in sight of land and stuff still. So,
wow.
Yeah, it was a, perfect touchdown and stuff like that. So no one was injured or hurt or anything, but technically, it was a complete engine failure.
I'm sure that she finally had more respect for him. Wives. My wife was always the same way. She was like, your job. You say it's so exciting, and then she said, Then finally I took her on a few things, and then she's like, wow, finally, the Pentagon, And, but she still didn't take it too seriously. I don't know why. But good for her. I think that was a good experience for her.
Yeah.
But then, so you are, you don't get it. You're probably anxious to get into the fight, right?
Yeah, so of course
2001, 2002, 2003.
Yeah, I was trying to volunteer to transfer to the tier 1 units. I said, I'm trying to get into the fight, right?
In Afghanistan or
in Afghanistan, yeah. And so things did not work out that way. So I went, in 2003 with obviously the Iraqi operation, and so that was interesting. It was probably the harshest living conditions I've ever experienced. This might be a little too much for the listeners, but I went over 4 weeks without taking a bath.
Wow.
I was definitely smelling pretty ripe.
In the desert and everything.
Oh my God, yeah, hot. It was springtime. just
everyone's bunking together.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Oh my God!
I never want to visit a desert again in my life. Just hot, dusty air. Oh my God!
Yeah, I've been to the Middle East several times, and I can guarantee you. I don't know what they're fighting over. There's
oil.
There's nothing there. I saw camels going by, and I asked the driver, and I says, "Are those just wild camels walking?" Yeah, just wild camels. No, okay,
Yeah, you'll still see that in parts of Montana. You'll see wild horses just out roaming
around
in the mountains. Yeah.
How do they survive?
The
winters are pretty rough, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know they had feral horses still.
Yeah. They have people that round them up for, they turn them into dog meat and stuff.
Oh, yeah, it's terrible. I'm surprised they still do that, actually. So you finally get your Apache, and you're getting ready to fly into Iraq for combat, right?
Right, yeah.
So are you part of the first wave of the invasion? Or?
No, my unit was about 30 days behind the first wave.
So you're still kind of like going crazy, right?
Yeah.
2 years and 30 more days, and oh my God, there's nothing to do in Kuwait, right?
Yeah. Kuwait was miserable, hot, miserable.
And there's no bars.
We had fatalities in Kuwait from heat exhaustion.
Really?
Yeah.
Heat exhaustion.
Yep.
Oh my God.
Yeah, heat stroke.
Oh Lord. But
we had I think about five casualties on my base from a heat stroke.
So hydration.
Yeah.
Just
definitely.
Keep pumping it.
You don't drink water for its taste. You drink it to survive.
But was things like sports drinks were probably
not really available. Yeah.
How do you get the salt? Because you need salt, right?
Yeah. I mean, you get it from the food that you eat.
Right.
Guess,
so okay.
Yeah.
They didn't give you salt capsules.
No.
All right. Sometimes they used to do that. Salt pills. They were terrified that somebody would have a heat stroke or heat exhaustion. That happened a lot in Vietnam, actually.
Yeah, I imagine.
But
my clothes were stained white.
Oh yeah.
From the salt.
I know exactly what that's like. My you don't wear black in the Middle East because it turns white very quickly. It was one of those weird lessons you learn when you get home and you're taking your shirt off and you're like, my God, what? And you realize, it's salt from your body.
Yeah.
You learn about your biology very quickly.
Yeah.
And then you take your underwear off, and oh my God, what the hell? I don't know. I had to throw a lot of shirts away. So you're 30 days into the battle, and we are 30 seconds from closing down.
Until next time.
Until next time. We have just had an amazing conversation, learning about the U.S. Army and Apache helicopters. And Brian, thank you so much for coming back on the program. We hope you continue living here in Taiwan, that you find happiness and enjoy. Do you miss helicopters? Do you ever go out and say, hey, I'd like to steal that one, fly it around?
Yeah, it was a good, very, very fun job to have for sure. But from the civilian perspective, very expensive endeavor to get into. So not really affordable.
Yeah, it's hard to get a job in the U.S. too doing it, right?
Well, it depends on what you want to do. But if I move back to the U.S., I could pick up a helicopter medical transportation job pretty easily.
There must be a lot of competition in that, isn't there?
I mean, it's a competitive job field, but the need far outweighs what's available, shall we say?
Okay.
So they are actually short. There's a huge pilot shortage in the United States currently.
Okay.
Where if you are a rated pilot, you're pretty sure you can get a job flying something.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to walk away from those kinds of experiences, though. But look, hey, thanks for coming, and hope to see you again.
No, thank you.
Cheers.